Welcome GRD 121 Computer Graphics to our Exercise 7 Oak Maple, and I'm very excited to get started with this one because we're using Gravit for the first time, and I think it's easier than doing it in Illustrator, to be honest. We're going to go down to Unit 6, and here's the exercise, and there's a link in here, and this is a link I'm sharing with you. So instead of having to download a file and upload a file, you could just click on the link, and you're going to add this to your account, and what you're going to do is just put your last name at the end of the file name when you save it. So basically, you're going to kind of append it to your account when you do that. So it'll be my shared file, but then you could save it into your cloud. So you're just going to click on this link. You don't even have to go into the assignment. Just click right here. And it should go into your account when it logs into Gravit. And if you get this thing, close it up because you need a pro subscription for this. So don't worry about this yet. And this is my account. So it's going into my account, and it says this design was shared by Richard Homa. So it was shared by me. And what you're going to do right away is just go File, Save to Cloud As, and like I said, just put your name after it. I'll just put Homa R. I'll just put my name at the end here. I don't care how you do it. Just do something like that, and that's about it. And just hit enter. There's not a save button here apparently, so I'll just hit enter. All right, so now it's going to sync and it's going to be part of your cloud. And if you look in the layers, there's just two things here. There's an image and an image, and there's a maple leaf. The maple leaf is actually on the top, and there's a oak leaf. And these are real scanned oak leaves. And if you click on them, let me unlock them just for a second. I'll click on one of these. It has the opacity turned down. And remember, if we turn down the opacity, it's easier to trace things. We did that with the WCCC logo. So that's turned down so we trace it. So we're going to trace it. And actually in the past, I used to have a path here, and then we just manipulate the path, but you might as well trace it, and we'll get practice doing that. So I'm going to lock these, and once we start tracing, once we start using the pen tool, we'll have a path over top of this, and then we're going to edit that path. So I'm going to make sure that I zoom in nicely. We're going to start with the oak leaf first. So I'm going to zoom into my leaf, and I'll use my space bar to move around here. So I see the oak leaf isolated, and I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to start up here. And it actually starts to scroll when I get close to the top here. But I'm going to start up here and just make points. We're just going to click and make points with the pen tool, and I'm just going to make them a change of directions. Now, what I don't ever want to see you do is to trace something and do this. I've seen people do this, and they go around and they go around and they zoom in real tight and they do this and they go around something like that. You don't ever want to do that because you're making too many anchor points, which increases the file size. Then you'd actually have to go in there and edit every single anchor point if it wasn't right. And usually what it does is it makes a very flat looking edges on it, almost like a bad resolution. You don't want to do that. You want to put anchor points at precise points where they can be controlled with their handles. So we don't want to put that many anchor points. So I'm just going to hit delete again. And I'm going to start over, and I'm just going to click here, click at the change of directions. Any place where it's kind of going in and out, that's where I'm going to do it. Now, it may not be perfect because there may be places where we may need to add an extra anchor point, but for now, we're just going to go around here. I'm going to go here to this point. I'm going to go into the gaps and to the tips. And even down here, I'm just scrolling as I go down here and just make points, straight line points around here. And this one, we'll add a point later. So I'm just going to go here. I will put a point here because there is kind of a change of direction here. That's a tough curve to create with one handle to go like it's coming out, then it's going to go in and then come out and go back in again. We probably need another point there. So I'm going to put that there, and I'll put one here, and I'll put one up here on the tip, and here, and here, and here, and I'll scroll up. And when you're done, click on where you started. Now, when it comes up all white, you want to get rid of your fill. So I'll go down here to fill and just click on the trash can. And you could leave it with a black border on for now. And then I'm really going to zoom in so I can really focus on these points. And we're going to be converting all of these points. Every one is going to be converted to a curve point with asymmetric handles, meaning the handles will be different sizes. And they'll need to be because we don't have something that's very symmetrical here. I mean, the leaf is symmetrical, but the lobes on the oak leaf are not symmetrical. We're not going to have handles that are the same length. That's not going to help us here. And I'm going to go here to path, and I'll just call it oak. I'll just put -oak. And I'll name that path because then we'll have one for our maple in here. Like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my direct selection tool in Illustrator or my Subselect in Gravit. I still get used to saying that, but Subselect is what they call it here. And the white arrow. And we're just going to convert these to this. And you could do a bunch at a time if you want. If you want to do a couple here, I mean, you could even highlight an area and do them. I'm going to do a couple here. I'll go around and do a couple. Now, obviously, that doesn't look good. And what you're going to be doing most of the time is shortening these handles, bringing them in. Now, one thing you got to be aware of is what's happening. I call this on the front end. What's happening here, you have to kind of look at what's happening ahead of it. So you can't just be focused on one handle. So I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to shorten this here. And this handle, remember, each handle plays a role in the line segment in between it. So there's a little kind of S shape going on here because that handle's coming out, this handle's coming out. But then this handle, because they work like seesaws, you can't just bend this at a whole different angle. You can, then it would be a corner point. So we're going to try to do this with curve points. And again, here we have two situations. We have this path here, but we have two handles. So I'm going to shorten the handle and try to bring it out. And then I'm going to shorten this handle. And you can see this one needs to be shortened more. And you could even move the point a little bit and shorten it more. And that looks pretty good. I would be happy with that. That looks good. Now we're moving on to the next. And again, as I'm doing this, if you want to fast forward, if you want to skip some parts, I'm okay with that. You don't have to watch every little thing. I'll talk my way through it, but it won't take that long. But I do like to explain everything that's going on with these. But again, before I start messing with this, change this one down here, kind of look ahead a little bit. So I'll pull this point in, and that way I'll kind of know what I'm doing here. Now, I'm bending this a little bit because it seems to work better down here by bending it. But that means up here, it's coming out, so I just have to shorten it. Because I don't have the ability to bend it down, now it's changing it on the other side. So I don't have the ability to do that, but I do have the ability to kind of shorten it. So I'm going to shorten it. And it looks good there, but it's a little off here, and that's okay. You could try to split the difference, try to rotate it a little, and then shorten this, although it's really going to be hard to get it perfect on both ends. Sometimes you do need, because the way it's coming out and it's going in, but that looks pretty good. I'll shorten this a little bit more. That looks pretty good. And I'll shorten this a little here. And I'll shorten this. So that doesn't look bad. You can always add another point if you needed to, but I'll try to do it without doing that right now. And again, I'll shorten this because I know I'm going to have to shorten it because you can see it's a really kind of deep kind of gap there. But then I'll go and I'll convert these and I'll convert that one. I'll do a couple at a time here and I'll convert that one. And then I'll bring this back on the tip. And again, a lot of times I'm just going to be shortening these handles, and that looks pretty good there. Actually, I'm going to lengthen that a little bit now and lengthen this. You see how when you start working on another one, it affects the previous one. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to handle what's going on there where it comes out a little, so I'm just going to leave that alone. But here we have a little S curve, so I'm going to try to do this by bringing this in. And remember, when you have an S curve, there's usually one handle that's coming out, one handle going in. So I'm going to try to do that S curve. And then, you know, it creates a problem down here, but I'm just going to shorten the handle. Just shorten it, bring it straight in, almost to a point, but not quite, because I don't want it pointy. And then down here, depending where you put this thing, I'll put it here, I'll just shorten this handle. And if you lose the handle, just click on the point again, shorten the handle, and I'll turn it a little. And now I have some other points coming up, so I need to convert these. So again, just converting them to asymmetric, meaning the handles have different lengths, but they are curve points, so they do work like a seesaw. So you have to be concerned about moving one and then the other, but the benefit is that they make a smooth transition between one line segment to the other. And here, instead of moving this, I'll just try to pull the handle out a little so it goes in that depth. So before you move a point, try working with the handle first. And here, that's a little more pointier, so instead of doing anything else, I'm just going to shorten it. Bring that in a little bit. Now, it's not going around that little belly there, but that's okay. I'm not going to be able to deal with every little thing I see here with all the points unless I add some points here and there, but I'm not worried about doing that. It is a leaf. No one's going to critique us that hard on the leaf, except for me, but I might, but no one else will. So down here, I'll make that a curve and just bring it in. And it'll even kind of make a curvy thing on the bottom of the stem, which is okay. You could even make this a curve. Now, that's coming way out, so you could kind of flip it a little So you have kind of a roundy bottom, and I guess that's okay. I'll bring it out a little bit. This one I'll just move up a little. Now here we do have this little, it kind of comes on a straight line and it goes in and out. This is where we'd actually have to add a point. And the nice thing here is you could just click right on the line and it'll add a point, and you could bring that in. And if it's still a straight line, just put the handles on it. Then you can kind of bend this one out. And don't worry about bending this in, because again, here, if you bend this out, it's going to make the other go the other way. So it's going to be frustrating. So keep that going out the way it is. And then this point, if you put handles on this one, you may be able to make it come out a little bit there. And I have to reposition this a little. And then before I do anything, I'm going to convert this one and shorten that handle and move this and shorten it. If you have to rotate it a little, you can. I'm not doing a lot of rotating of handles here. And I'll bend that out a little bit. And again, that looks pretty good. And I'm going to leave that alone until I move on to this one. And because of this weird little pinch thing here, I'll click on this and do that one as well. Just kind of pull it in, and I'll pull this one in. And you may have to rotate a little. And you may even want to reposition it a little bit. But again, before you move things, try to shorten things. That looks pretty good. And I'll even shorten this here. And I do have a little point there, but that's okay. It's kind of like that actually, so I'll leave that alone. And here I can just shorten this a little bit. That looks pretty good. Now here's where we have that S shape like we had over here. I'll try to do the same thing. I'll try to bend this one in like an S shape, and that means I should go up here and convert that one so I could kind of control that S shape a little bit better. That way I could pull this one in. Now I have to worry about this, but I'll just try to bring it in as much as I can. And if I need to move the point a little bit, I'll pull it out, and that looks pretty good. I'll bring this out a little bit, bring this down over a little bit, and then we're almost done with our leaf. I'll convert this one since it's going to affect what's going on up here. And I'll shorten that, because I know I'm going to have to. Whenever you have this real kind of deep groove here, you know you're going to have to shorten them. And that looks pretty good. I may shorten this a little bit to get rid of that belly. And I may lengthen this to go into a little bit, and that looks okay. If there's a little going over, it doesn't have to be perfectly perfect. And I'll convert this, and I'll convert this, then they'll all be converted. And I'll just shorten this one, and maybe bend this one down a little bit. I'm not going to be able to handle that little thing coming out there, and that's okay. And I'll just shorten this. And maybe move it a little bit. And shorten this. Again, if you miss the point, just kind of click back on the point again. And this comes out a little. Now, the only way to address that is maybe to move it. And, you know, if you tried to bend this way a little bit, that may handle that. Well, actually, that may be okay. That actually may look better. I'll just shorten this tip a little bit. So that looks pretty good. I'll zoom out. And I think that's a pretty good looking leaf. You don't want to see many white parts. Like I said, a lot of times you're just going to shorten the handles. Bring them closer to the point. Make them more like a corner point when you bring the handles closer to the original anchor point. That looks pretty good. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. And I'm going to go back to my pointer tool. And I think it looks pretty good. And I'm going to go add a fill. And I'm going to give it a nice gradient. I have to choose radial gradient. I'll choose orange in the middle. And then on the other side, I'll choose like this deep red. And if you want to, you know, rotate a little bit, I like to keep it at this like 3 o'clock L shape and then move that around. If you want it more red, you could bring this in. Closer it comes in, it's going to be kind of a shorter gradient, so it'll be more of the red color. It'll be more of that color in it. So that looks pretty good if you need to move it. Always get the quad arrow and move it around a little bit, and that looks pretty good. And we're going to use these leaves in other projects. So we're not just going to be done with them, but it's a good exercise to get familiar with working with anchor points and seeing how they affect each other, especially as you go around a shape. And, you know, only adding new ones when you need them, not putting a lot of extra anchor points there. So I'm going to stop here with part 1 And again, this one was basically converting to curve points with asymmetric handles, so everything had a very smooth kind of connectors and transitions between line segments. This one will be different. This one has those scallops, so there'll be a lot of corner points here. We'll be using disconnected here, so we'll have to address that, but I don't think that'll even take as long as that one. So I'm going to do that in part 2. So that's the end of part 1 for now for our 7 oak maple leaf.